I want to welcome everyone to our Mother's Day service at Gospel Chapel here in Broesky. And it's a special welcome to all our church family, but also to anyone that is watching online today. And so we just thank you for that, for joining us. And due to the new COVID restrictions in effect today, this message was recorded last night or on Saturday. And so you're not hearing it live, but recorded. But we're here today to celebrate Mother's Day. And so happy Mother's Day, first of all, to all the moms. And the scripture tells us that we are to, in Ephesians 6, verse 3, it says to honor, or verse 2 rather, honor our father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise. And so we are commanded in the scriptures to honor our mothers. And so this is what we're doing and just sharing this morning, that you will be encouraged and challenged and lifted up. And so the origin of Mother's Day, if you ever asked where does this come from? Well, it was first celebrated in 1908 by a woman by the name of Anna Jarvis, who held a public memorial for her late mother, who had died in 1905, 3 years earlier, in the town of Grafton, West Virginia. And so this is the origin of it. But in 1914, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson signed a proclamation, I'll get it yet, making Mother's Day an official holiday to take place annually the second Sunday of May. And so Mother's Day became a day dedicated to expressing love and gratitude to mothers, acknowledging their sacrifices, the sacrifice that women make to their children. And today we want to celebrate all mothers. Whether you have given birth or adopted or fostered a child, we want to celebrate that today. But before I go into the message, I also want to acknowledge that Mother's Day can be difficult for some of you. Perhaps your mother has passed away recently, or you have lost a child, and just difficulty having a child, or can be a difficult day for you today, on a day like this. Or perhaps a relationship with your mother or your child is stressed or broken. May God comfort you today. So let's just pause for prayer. Father in heaven, I just thank you for the opportunity, Lord, to present this message, Lord, on Mother's Day. And Lord, just I pray, God, that the words that I speak will be an encouragement to each one. And so we just ask God for his anointing and his blessing and his leading. In Jesus' name, amen. So before I really get into the scriptures, there's a group of women who were asked, what does being a mother or motherhood mean to you? And we tossed around the idea of asking the moms of Gospel Chapel to answer that question. But as we're seeing right now, that with the restrictions and stuff like this, it wouldn't have worked too well. Now, you can still participate if you like and answer that question. And but I just want to read a number of answers to that question by different women. I'm not going to mention any names of who they were, but these are actual answers that moms gave. And so here goes. Motherhood is truly a remarkable gift and privilege. Not a very long answer, but a very powerful one. It means to be fearless, to be positive role model, to be a continuous cheerleader for every milestone my children experience. Another answered, means to demonstrate unconditional love and to cherish the countless memories. So some just had one-line answers and some had a little more. Means to be empowered and strengthen my children as well as to foster self-confidence and kindness. And this is probably the shortest answer and probably pretty powerful. It says, being a mother is the greatest job in the world. And so that's quite a statement. Means always being there, the shoulder to cry on, the cheerleader to never give up, the one that gives the standing ovation, the familiar hand to hold. Another answered, means being completely and totally overwhelmed in the best possible way by love, joy, responsibility, and selflessness. Means getting to see all the possibility in the world through your children's eyes, and always wanting to be the kindest and most generous version of yourself so that your children can look up to you. And so it's a big task, I realize, and interesting answers, some of them. A few more here. Another said, means being tired, sometimes grumpy, and never left alone, and then in one funny, loving, or meaningful moment with your kids, realizing that it's all completely worth it, times 1,000,000. That's quite a statement. Being an emotional blankie for your children, they snuggle with you at night, run to you when they're hurt, and stand behind you in scary situations. And so I think that's a pretty true statement. You see that quite often. Means it is my responsibility to give my children the tools they need to live a happy and meaningful life. Motherhood is a lifetime adventure, the hardest non-paying 24-hour job you will ever do, and my greatest achievement. That's quite a statement. 24-hour job. Means that sacrificing my body, my time, my finances, my sleep, my mental health to raise my kids will be worth it in the end because life isn't about me anymore. Now that's quite a statement in itself. Means learning, listening, leading, laughing, loving, and living in the moment, all while executing the details of life with confidence. Means to be vulnerable and afraid, yet somehow finding such fulfillment and hope that I'm able to appreciate the extraordinary journey. Means to put your own problems and issues aside and guide your children through life's adventures with a happy and positive attitude. And the last one I have here is the longest one, and it probably sums it all up. Motherhood is asleep with one eye open, to have your heart so filled with love and think it might explode, and then have it broken only in the space of less than 60 seconds. To be a guide, a coach, a cheerleader, a policewoman, a superhero, a kissy monster, a friend, and confidant. Even when you have the flu and all you want to do is hide under the covers, to do your best and remember in the hardest of times that the tantrums will pass, teenagers grow out of it, nothing ends a bad parenting moment like a big hug, and most importantly, that it's okay not to be perfect. So we're not looking for perfection. Or I would probably say God is not looking for perfection, but for commitment. So praise God for mothers and their willingness to sacrifice the time that they do to raise their children. The Lord bless you. I want to look at a couple of mothers in the scriptures now. And you know their stories already. But it's good to be reminded sometimes. And so there are lessons for us to learn from these mothers, not just for mothers, but for all of us. And so I want to look at Hannah and at Sarah. And I think most of us know the account of both of these women, and both of them weren't able to conceive for many years. And so Hannah wasn't able to conceive. And it's a struggle that many women have. We don't sometimes think about that or realize this, but there's many women that struggle with this. And there's an estimated 6.1 million in the U.S. And in Canada, 1 in 6 couples are struggling to have children or unable to have children. And that can cause heartbreak and sadness and frustration and deep longing and pain. And we have never had to go through that. We I don't even know if I personally know anyone that's really struggling with that, but there are people that struggle with that, but not be able to have children. And I think that, motherhood is probably, in many women, their deepest desire, and that deep desire is to have children. And so when we think of those, our hearts go out to you, and pray that God will answer your prayer as he answered Hannah's prayer. Not Anna, but Hannah. And so in Bible times, not being able to have children was, a disgrace, or it brought shame to the family. And, bearing children, and especially a son, meant that the line would continue. And I don't know if we think about that as much today, but it was very important back in the Bible times that the lineage would carry on. And for that, you had to have sons. And so besides the pain and the sorrow of infertility, there's an interesting statement here, and I didn't really ever pay much attention to this, but Hannah had to contend with her husband's other wife. He had 2 wives, I guess, who was bearing children and taunted Hannah about it. So can you imagine, one mother or one woman wanting a child and not being able to conceive, and another one, taunting her because she's not able to have children. So as Anna had done, many times before, she had gone to the house of the Lord to pray. And in 1 Samuel 1, verses 10 and 11, we read this: and she was in bitterness of soul. So she was, excuse me. So she was in a desperate situation, was not be able to bear a child. Bitterness of soul, and prayed to the Lord and wept in anguish. When she made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a male child, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon his head. So she poured out her heart to God in her situation, and at the same time made a promise to God as well. And even though she hadn't been able to have a child up until this point. She didn't ask God just for a child, which she could have done, just to have a child. But she asked for a male child. She was very specific, and and would give him back to the Lord later on. So that's quite a promise. And it's interesting that after she had prayed this, and Hannah believed that God would answer her prayer, her plea. And in 1 Samuel 18, it says, "Let your maidservant find favor in your sight." And so the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. So there's something that happened here that is not written, but somehow she knew that God was going to answer her prayer. And I don't know if we've ever experienced, I've ever experienced, maybe you have, that you just, when you pray, you know that God is going to answer your prayer. And God hears us, and God does answer prayer. But somehow she was no longer sad at that point because she trusted in God for a child. And in Samuel 1:20 it says, "So it came to pass in the process of time that Hannah conceived and bore a son, and called his name Emmanuel, saying, Because I have asked for him from the Lord." And so Hannah had her child that she had asked for. God was faithful, gave her this child. And so after he was weaned, she brought him back to Eli, the high priest. And she gave Samuel, or left Samuel there. And, that's quite a thing. First she asks for a child. She gets her child. But she promises that she will give him back to the Lord. And it was at a very young age that it actually happened, probably 3 or 4 years old. And I believe that she was able to visit him and all this, but she actually gave up her child at this point. So that's quite something. And but Hannah she did not waver. She kept her promise. And this is an important thing for us to learn, is that if we make a promise, that we keep it, especially to our children. I don't know if you know this or not, but never say maybe to a child, because a maybe is a yes. And so it's either a yes or no. Maybe is a yes. I have found this out a number of times. Well, I said maybe. Yeah, Dad, you said yes. We were going to go. So like I said, she kept visiting Samuel regularly at the temple. And so God didn't only give her one son, but she gave Hannah 5 more children after that. So God blessed Hannah. And so we just want to look at lessons from Hannah's life. And so as Hannah went and poured her heart out to God, I think God calls us to that in times of need or distress, whatever, that we pour out our heart to God. And in that time, in this difficult situation, whatever we might be facing, we can wait on God. We can trust Him. We serve a trustworthy God. And we can do this without wavering. And the scriptures are here to encourage us and to do that we don't waver, that we don't doubt. And I think we all do that. We all waver, we all doubt that God is actually going to answer or God is going to actually come through. And in Psalms 27, verse 14, in the New Living Translation says, "Wait patiently for the Lord, be brave and courageous. Yes, wait patiently for the Lord." So we have that word patiently there twice. And so two things here, that oftentimes we are called to wait for the Lord. And it says to wait patiently for the Lord. And that is interesting. And because we see that God's timing is right, it's perfect. And we want everything now. Now, we went through McDonald's drive-through the other day, and they're revamping the whole building. I don't know if you've seen it. It's going to have a totally different look when they're done. But I was just thinking as we were driving through the drive-through, that from the time you place your order at that little speaker, and you get to that second window, you expect your food to be there. And if they tell you, well, you have to wait a few minutes, go park in a designated parking area, and they'll bring the food to you, well, that's not too bad. But if it happens to go 5 minutes or so, you start getting anxious. When is my food going to come? And I think sometimes we're like this with God, that we want everything now, not now, but right now. We don't want to wait. But I think that God has a purpose for us to wait, as He had for Hannah. We're going to see this right away. And so God had a plan for Samuel, and it was a greater purpose than just a male child that was born to Hannah. And so Samuel, he was born, at just a perfect time. In God's time, Samuel was born. And so Hannah needed to be at a place in her life where she was willing to allow Samuel, her son, to be raised by the high priest Eli, for him to be raised or become a priest as well. And so even in her waiting on the Lord, it had a purpose. And I never really seen this before, but it's a significant purpose. Because later, Samuel succeeded Eli as high priest. He also was a prophet and a judge over Israel. And he anointed Saul to be king, and also David to be king, who was in the direct lineage of Christ. So her waiting had a purpose. She had to wait for God's perfect time for Samuel to be born. And so it's just interesting how God works. He works in His time and not ours. And so I think that's a lesson that we can learn from Hannah, from this passage of Scripture, and that we can totally trust God with our children without wavering. So there's some lessons that we can learn from Hannah's life. And probably it's not going to make waiting for the Lord any easier, maybe, but it should give us a sense that we can trust God in our waiting for Him. And even though we've been praying for different things, concerning whatever, our children or whatever, we want them all to serve God and all these things. And but we wait for the Lord's timing. And as sometimes we want to jump in there and help God out, as we will see with Sarah's account here. So we'll look at Sarah for a moment. So Sarah, she was barren and also had no children. And so this also caused her difficulties in the culture that she lived in, that brought shame on her because she was a woman and she had no children. And but in Genesis 15:5, God promised her husband Abraham. It's interesting. He promised Abraham a son, and that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. And so God entered the picture, and but he was really there all alone. Samuel 1:5 says God had closed her womb. So it wasn't anything that she had done, but it's God that closed her womb. Abraham was 75 years old, and I think we're all familiar with this story, this passage. And Sarah was 65 at that time. And so while she waits, she gets impatient and doubted God and decided to help make it happen and to kind of help God out. And I think sometimes we do that too. We pray for things and then we want to, it's not happening quick enough. And so what can I do to make this happen quicker? But we need to realize that God has a plan and a purpose, and he also has a time that he has set. And of course, we know the story. She gave her servant Hagar to Abraham to produce a son, a customary practice at that time, though not a good decision on her part. And this is where Ishmael was born. And so after 15 years of waiting, God renews his promise with Abraham, saying that his heir would come through Sarah. And before that, he had only told Abraham that he would give him a son. And so maybe this is where it went off the rails a little bit. But 15 years of waiting, and the promise was renewed, but the promise was still not fulfilled. And so in Genesis 17:15, her name is changed. I don't know if you pronounce those names Sarah, the same as one with an I, one with an H. But anyway, her name meaning a mother of many nations, the word Sarah. And it was 10 more years before the promise was fulfilled, and Sarah bore a son for Abraham and named him Isaac, meaning laughter, because she had laughed about this whole thing. And it's interesting. And at first, she laughed in unbelief, and when she first heard the promise. And then when Isaac was born, when her son was born, she laughed with joy. And we read that in Genesis 21:6. And Sarah said, God has made me laugh, and all who hear will laugh with me. She also said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age. So Sarah was 90, Abraham was 100 years old. So I'm not advocating that, if you're, never mind 90, if you're 70 years old, that, you'd be praying for children, to be bearing children. But, God can do the impossible. And and this was, with anybody, this would have been an absolute miracle that she bore a child. So it was 25 years of waiting for a promise from God. 25 years. And And that would seem difficult. It would be difficult. And, we've heard testimonies of moms praying for their children, grandmothers praying for their for their nieces and nephews. And excuse me, and never seeing the results or their prayers answered till after they passed away. And but their prayers were heard and their prayers were answered, but they never got to see it on this side of heaven. So, she probably did, because she doubted, and she probably thought that God had totally forgotten about her. And I think sometimes people feel that way in waiting for the Lord. But God keeps his promises. He's never broken a promise. He always keeps his promises, and there are promises, I'll share them a little bit later, in the scriptures that we can take and hang on to. Lamentations 3, verse 22 and verse 23, again in the New Living Translation, the faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. Great is his faithfulness. And so these are scriptures that we can take to heart and be encouraged by, that God is faithful and that he is not a promise breaker, but he is a promise keeper. So in waiting for God, we can also trust him. And if we gain, or if we are able to have that trust, then the waiting wouldn't be as hard. Isaiah 40:31 says, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." And so it's interesting about waiting. There's an aspect of waiting that can be on the downside, get us down, get us weary. But if our trust is in God, then our waiting is not going to bring us down. It's actually going to build us up if our trust is in God. The Bible tells us there's nothing too difficult for God. With God, all things are possible. We don't always do everything perfectly, and we mess up sometimes, but God is gracious. He is merciful. His mercies are new every morning. There's something that we can count on, that his mercies are new every morning. Another lesson, we are never too old to be tested by God. And so, even though, not talking about bearing children at an old age, but God he tests us. And we're never too old to be tested. And and we're never too old to learn new lessons. And if we say that we have arrived, we just deceive ourselves. Somewhere down the road, there's another lesson to learn. Doesn't matter how old we are or how young you are, there's always some lesson to learn. And so we can take this from this account. So God can take us from our deepest doubts to faith in him. And so as I mentioned earlier, Sarah, she laughed with disbelief at first, and then later on laughed with joy. So God can turn that whole situation around. And sometimes when we're in the situation, we don't see the outcome or the reason for it, but afterwards, we can see it. We say that hindsight is 20/20. And so it's interesting that even though Sarah doubted, Sarah tried to help God out in the situation, but she ends up being in the list of heroes of faith in Hebrews chapter 11. And it says, by faith, Sarah herself also received strength to conceive seed, and she bore a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. And so, I think it's encouraging us to see that even though we do experience times of doubt and frustration and anguish, but if we bring it to God and we begin to trust Him, that He will answer our prayer and in His time. And so this is important to note. So God has put things in His Word, promises in His Word. And like I said before, God is not a promise breaker, but He is a promise keeper. Proverbs 22:6. I think we're all familiar with this scripture. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. This is something that God has put in the scriptures. It's a promise from God. And sometimes we don't see this, with our children, especially if they have gone wayward. We, in our thinking, in our minds, we say, well, what is it going to take, to bring them back to the Lord? We don't know what it would take, but we have the promise that if we've trained them up in the way that they should go, then when they're old, they will not depart from it. So that's a promise that we can hang on to. And the words instructs us that we are to train up or bring up in the training and the admonition of the Lord our children. To teach them the ways of God. And that's our responsibility. It is responsibility of mothers and of fathers. And it's not the responsibility of your neighbors or anybody else. It's not that neighbors don't help, but it is the responsibility of the parents. In Proverbs 20, verse 7, it says, the godly walk with integrity. Blessed are their children who follow them. So we are to live an example for our children. We're to live godly lives and to be Christ-like for them to follow. Proverbs 31, 25 to 28 says, she is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future. When she speaks, her words are wise, and she gives instructions with kindness. She carefully watches everything in her household and suffers nothing from laziness. Her children stand and bless her. Her husband praises her. And so, this would be another answer to, what is a mother or what is motherhood like. And so there's an answer in Scripture. In Ephesians 6, verse 2 and 3, the opening scripture that I read earlier, or I read part of it, it says, honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth. And honor means to respect, esteem, value, credit, revere, and look up to. And so we are to honor our mother and father. We're to honor our moms today. So let's celebrate this day. Let's celebrate our moms. And And I know that, as you know, some of you don't have moms anymore. And as Pastor Ernie said last Sunday, that amongst us three pastors, I'm the only one that still has a mom that's alive, and I'm very thankful for that. I don't know what's happening with my throat. But today we want to bless our moms, and there's many different ways that we can do that today. Phone calls, just do FaceTime, and tomorrow we have the privilege of visiting my mom, and she's in an a supportive housing situation in Steinbach, and so my mom is still alive and doing well at 95. And so she's kind of a feisty old bird. She loves to have fun. And this picture was taken in April, I believe, just a little while ago. She had just got her hair done and everything, and so she was all happy about that. So she's a mother of 9 children, and all of us are still alive. All our children are alive still. And she has many great-grandchildren, or grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and a few great-great-grandchildren. And our little Emma Louise is one of the great-grandchildren. And so she has the ability to love everybody, to love all her children equally. And I don't know how she does that, but that is something that she has purposed in her heart to do. And that's every one of us. I'd like to think that I'm the more special one, but she loves all of us the same. But she has she's fun, and she has, just loves to joke around, and she's got a good sense of humor. And even though at her age she's not able to sew the way she used to, she's still sewing, baby blankets and bibs, and for a while there she was sewing masks, and so she supplied, I don't know, a number of people with masks. I don't know how many she did, but I would say well over 100. And she's very considerate of others. And if somebody's hurting, or so she has a very compassionate heart and a very thankful heart. Even in this time, difficult time, she's still a very thankful, positive person. And but she would love nothing more than to come to church and then come over for lunch afterwards. And so we're praying that it's going to happen soon, that the restrictions will be removed, and that we can bring her to church, and she's looking forward to that, and so am I. And she has a love for God, and she has a love for God's Word, and she reads her Bible every day, and she's very devoted to that. And like I said, she just loves church, loves being here. And in this time of her locked into the place there where she's staying, so we bring her the CDs from the messages that are preached here, and she listens to them all, and sometimes more than once. And she stays on top of everything. And so I'm really thankful that my mother is still alive. Not only is she alive, but she's alive. Like, she's a live person, and she's lively, And so it's fun to be with her. So, Mom, I love you, and I pray that you have a blessed day tomorrow. I guess I should say today, because I messed that up now. But yeah, I'm blessed to have my mother, and thank you, Lord. So once again, happy Mother's Day to all you moms, and I pray that you get totally blessed on this day. So let's just close in a word of prayer. Father in heaven, I just want to thank you for my mom today, and Lord, for the wonderful, wonderful person that she is. She's just genuine, and there's nothing phony about her. And so I just thank you for that. And I pray, God, that you would just bless her today, that you would just sense your presence. And Lord, I pray, God, that she would not get discouraged at this time, Lord, where she's restricted and where she can go. But Lord, that she would be lifted up there, and Lord, that you would just touch her today, that you would just continue to give her good health and strength. And we thank you for that, Lord. I pray, God, for all the moms in this church, God, that you would just bless them today, that you would bless them beyond measure. And I thank you for that. I just give you praise and I give you thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.